Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, viewers. Today we'll be talking about Pakistan-India relations, and as you know, last 2 days, the Indians' leadership, the military leadership, and the political leadership, they has been issuing threatening statements against Pakistan. We had recently a conflict with them in May, and in that conflict, Pakistan defeated Indians, which still they are not recognizing this. And the recent statements are a provocation. They want to destabilize this South Asian region, and the way they has been, the Indians have been, isolated not only in this region but internationally, and that is something which is hurting them. And internally, since there are elections which are going to be taking place maybe this month or next month in Bihar, and that is another reason that the Indians they are trying to divert the entire failure of the Indian government internally, and their foreign policy which has failed. So that's why that may be one of the reasons that once again they have started a verbal attack on Pakistan. Uh, on this issue, we are going to talk, and my guest is a very prominent defense analyst, Air Marshal Amir Masood. Thank you very much, Mr. Amir, that you have given me a time. Please, we need your thoughts. That is this. I mean, these statements and threats should be taken seriously, or it is only for the international consumption as well as their domestic consumption.
Ji, thank you very much. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This sort of timings for giving such provocative statements, I think, is first of all a reflection of a defeatist mindset. Secondly, definitely they would like to give some sort of message to their public for whatever losses they have suffered, and the world has also uh, authenticated that all what happened on the 6th and 7th night was something in which the India and Indian Air Force was clearly defeated, and they suffered heavy losses. And subsequently, also during the 4 days conflict, they were not able to assert or achieve their objectives. Rather, it was only humiliation which they suffered out of whatever action they wanted and whatever objectives there were to subdue Pakistan or to create a new norm or to have deterrence against Pakistan. Nothing was achieved except that they end up having very heavy losses. So this is mainly a defeatist mindset, which is reflection of such provocative statement, and one after another by senior officers, the defense minister, the air force of chief, and the army chief. And to say this thing, I mean, this is something very, very immature and which cannot be expected from a senior ranking officer as high as an army chief to say that the Pakistan is going to be erased from the map. I mean, this shows their mindset. This shows the mindset of Modi and the Hindutva regime, which is presently ruling Hindustan and which is actually creating problems not only for Pakistan but for the whole region. That by saying this thing to a neighbor, a nuclear neighbor, that we are going to erase you from the map is something which is really, I mean, it is unprecedented. No one would, I mean, ever give this sort of statement, even for a very small country which is independent, which has its own sovereign boundaries and its own, map on the earth, and which is accepted by the United Nations and most of the countries, and which has and a country like Pakistan, which Alhamdulillah is a powerful country, not only militarily, but of 250 million people. And subsequently, in whatever conflicts, we have shown this thing that India doesn't have any might to even, take an inch of this country or to what to talk about subduing this country or creating any serious harm, while they have been doing this thing through irregular means towards our western border. But I personally think that such statements are not going to be of any use, any help for them. Even the domestic audience very seriously know that a country which has been considering and have been, giving such sort of impression that they are the fourth strongest military, the rising economy, and the shining India, fell like a house of cards and like a mud house, on sixth and seventh night. And that seriously reflects that their basics, their bases, and their foundations are very weak. I mean, as it is said by Allama Iqbal, that जो शाख नाजुक पे आशियाना बनेगा ना पायदार होगा. So actually, their foundations are very weak, and they're going to crumble in case they go for any adventure in the future. I personally think that in the past two incidents in 2019, once they just threw the bombs across the border and were trying to engage few targets, and they lost two of their jets, and one of their pilot was captured also. We showed that sagacity, we showed that maturity, we showed that restraint, and we not only gave them a message of military ethics. We returned that prisoners of war with due respect and with few gifts also, because we have some, even in war you have some military ethics. But subsequently, this time they came and they decided to engage 10 targets as much as 100 and 150 kilometers inside our borders. And then subsequently on 10th of May, they had the strength, or whatever you can say, that to use the surface to surface missiles against a nuclear neighbor, which is again unprecedented, that nuclear neighbors don't use such ballistic missiles against each other, and surface to surface missiles, whether they are cruise or ballistic. But this is something which reflects their mindset, and this is something which also reflects that frustration in the hearts and minds of their leadership for not achieving what they have been thinking of in last about couple of decades, that they will be able to subdue Pakistan, and they always try to de-hyphen themselves from Pakistan, thinking they have gone in parallel to China and Russia and United States, and they are the fourth biggest power, not only in the region but in the world as well. So, I mean, that is where they were able to suffer. And these provocative statements, these immature statements by their leadership is definitely a reflection of that particular thing.
My question is, Air Marshal, that do you think that their, illogical, irrational arrogance is something, and then you have also spoken about the Hindutva kind of ideology, which normally, the political leaders use or misuse for attracting the public, which the RSS and this BJP has been doing over the years. That's why they are in the power. It was not being used by the professional military leadership, but now, unfortunately, these Indian military leadership is using these cards. Do you think it is going to be in their favor, and they're going to convince, okay, you are addressing the domestic public, but they have made themselves a laughing stock at the international level, and people east or the west, they're all making fun of them.
Well, I mean, it's not going to serve any purpose, and it was rightly mentioned by our DG ISPR also, that our response would be befitting, decisive, and assured, and we are ready for any eventualities. If they choose military confrontation, that would be their choice, but we would then determine its future direction. That's very important. I have been an advocate of this particular aspect since Pulwama, where they came and they wanted to create some sort of new norm. That was there was a slogan that "Moody hai to mumkin hai." That what should have been nipped in the bud, and in the bud, if you don't nip this sort of evil, they rise and they then start to do provocation. And the way they came this time in May, by ingressing or by using more weaponry and more of their firepower. So I particularly I'm of this view that we should go against any such aggression in an asymmetric manner. It should not be a quid pro quo response for people, for mindset like Moody, Amit Shah, Ajit Doval, and their cronies and their instruments in the shape of army chief and the air force chief, etc., being used specifically for political objectives and without any rhyme or reason blaming Pakistan for any and every sort of terrorist act which happens in anywhere in India. So this new norm should be finished once and for all. We should have done more damage, and we had that strength, we had that firepower to create and do damage to them in 2019 and shoot maybe more jets or destroy their more targets on ground. We, in this time, also had a complete control of fear. It was the professionalism of our Air Force, our armed forces, that in the first 1 hour we were able to take control of air. But we showed restraint, we showed that maturity, we avoided escalation. But I think for an enemy like India and for mindset like Moody and the Hindutva concept, we should not show any restraint and we should not be controlling the escalator, the ladder for escalation. At times you have to escalate to de-escalate, and that is we should do anytime, as has been mentioned by our DGISPR and the leadership, that next time it's going to be decisive, and it should be decisive for whatever reasons. I mean, they should not be having this sort of new norm that they should always be able to find space for such adventures once both the neighbors are nuclear, and especially for Pakistan, once Pakistan wants to settle it peacefully, and they don't want any further escalation, they don't want further provocation, they want to settle their internal issues and address the expectations of the public, which is almost, if you compare on both the sides, it's almost 1.5 billion plus, and we have to address their issues. That should be number one priority, rather than giving such statements which are very immature. So our response, I personally think, in future should be asymmetric. It should be in a way that they should have that much of pain and punishment, that they should not have any sort of inhibition, any sort of ever they should decide to act or to do an act of aggression against Pakistan sovereignty. And I mean, look, I mean, how can you do such sort of adventure and use such weapon and do so much of use of firepower once you know that both the neighbors are nuclear? They have to show some restraint. uh, but I think that message has not gone, and their way of talking, their narrative, which has been of having Sindoor 2.2 or 2.1 or 2.0, whatever, and that is only because they have not been able to get and they've been not been able to achieve their objectives in the Sindoor which they wanted.
And that's
It
why
is
I'm saying, Jay, that's why I'm saying that, do you think that they want to achieve the objectives which they could not, and naturally they want to rebuild their image which they have been presenting to the Western world, that we are here to take care of the Chinese, which unfortunately they could not compete with Pakistan even. So they must be in a kind of a shock, and still that's why they are going such statements. Do you think that in last 5 months or so, since May, when this last conflict between India and Pakistan that took place, they do you think that they have improved their air power, or they have purchase some new technology on the basis of which they are going to they are giving such statements and threatening Pakistan?
no. I think, I mean, in 4 or 5 months, nothing much can change as far as their training is concerned, as far as their equipment is concerned, as far as their human resources concerned, as far as their motivation is concerned. I personally think that if anything has changed, then it is on the negative side as far as the Indian military and the armed forces are concerned after Operation Sindoor and after the losses they have suffered. So, what I feel, though, I mean, we had always been in a situation of no war, no peace with India. And after Sindoor, we are in a situation of more war and less peace. But I personally think that they know that through conventional means, through direct attack or through direct kinetic action, steel versus steel, they would never be able to achieve their objectives. Rather, they will always suffer loss and humiliation, which they have done, which they have tested and tried in two of the conflicts in 2019 and this year as well. So what they are doing is they are going for irregular warfare. They are trying to create chaos in towards our western side. They are trying to buy people. They are trying to use weapons, people, guns, and
That,
money.
that's why that's why they keep on saying that the Sandur is going on, because they are naturally sponsoring terrorism, both of our provinces in Balochistan and KP, through, by using Afghanistan's land.
Exactly. I mean, so they will use some other ways, methods, means, which they have been doing previously as well, whether it is through the media, through the information operations, through irregular warfare, through diplomacy, through economic activity, which they have tried and they have failed miserably. But they would definitely try to harm Pakistan because for them it is always a zero sum game. They have tried to weaponize water, they have tried to weaponize sports, whatever you have seen in the cricket as well. It is unprecedented. So they would use all ways, methods, and means. But one thing should be very much clear to them that now, if they start, then they would not be the one who are going to finish. As I mean, China has said it to any of the superpowers that maybe they fire, anyone can fire the first volley or the first attack, but the second attack would not be done by anybody else except China itself. And same is the message for India that they may start this time, but they won't be able to finish without what we do or what how we achieve our objectives and how we control the escalation ladder. So this message should be very much clear to them,
Yes, and
and we
I
should.
think, yes, sir, and I think that the frustration that it is reflected in their military leadership as well as the political leadership is because they have been trying to isolate Pakistan, but after that May this year, Pakistan has been the only country in this region which has successfully engaged itself both with the Eastern nations powers, including China. Naturally, China is a very close friend of Pakistan. And also, we have engaged the Russians, where the Indians claim that they are very close to the Russia. And in the West, we are very close to, the Americans as well. So this must be hurting the Indians' ego at the moment.
Absolutely. I mean, India, you remember in just a year back, they were projecting themselves to be the one of the biggest, regional power and of course a global force to reckon with. And they always used to say at every forum that Pakistan is not a country where you should hyphen Pakistan with India. You should always hyphen it with Afghanistan or such countries because Pakistan has no, you cannot have parallel between India and Pakistan, the way the India is rising and shining and the way Pakistan is falling and dooming. So first of all, they should realize that I mean you cannot rise and shine with Pakistan. Is if the Pakistan is falling or Pakistan is unstable, the biggest stakeholder for stability in Pakistan should be India. If they are mature enough, they should realize this thing. The earlier, the better for them also. And this message has been given to them also that if the Pakistan is going to be erased, you are going to be the one which are going to accompany Pakistan if that has to be done. Both countries, it's not possible that only Pakistan goes down and is doomed and you start rising and shining and see Pakistan drowning while you are swimming and you are achieving your objectives. It doesn't happen like this. And a country as big as Pakistan, as resolute, as strong, as resilient, with 250 million people, you cannot just say this thing in any of the forum. It is always better and it is more pragmatic, it's more sane, and it is more rational for you as well that you accept the existence of your neighbors. This theory of Chanakya and Arthra Shastra that your neighbors are your enemies should go off your mindset, and you should realize that these are important countries which are your immediate neighbors, and the more you have interaction with them, trade with them, harmony with them, peace with them, peace within and peace with your neighbors, the better it is going to be for the region. Pakistan is a country which has always believed in stability and peace with the regional countries, peace with its neighbors. And it is always India which has tried to create those fissures, those gaps, and those sort of, between the neighbors, especially using wedge between us and Afghanistan, with us and Iran, through their proxies which are operating towards our western borders. So I think now is the time for them to realize that a region with 101.5 billion plus population, you have to think otherwise. You have to stop giving these slogans of war on which they have always thrived. They have always won elections. It is time that they should now give a message of peace to themselves, to their population, and also to their neighboring countries if they want to survive and thrive in future.
Final question. The DGISPR has said that the Indians have been over the years playing a victim, that we are the victim of terrorism. But in fact, they have been perpetrating and planning and launching their people inside Pakistan. They have been doing terrorism in Kashmir as well. And they have exposed themselves as a terrorist state when they, killed the Sikhs in Canada and America and the Western world, then realized that the Indians, at the state level, they have been, committing these acts of terrorism. So, do you think that the Indians, what they are doing with the domestic, minorities, Muslims, erasing the mosques, even the Christians are not safe in India. So that is one of the reasons that their frustration is increasing day by day.
Absolutely. I mean, after 9/11, Indian brought a paradigm shift in their thought process, and they got an opportunity from out of box that they should be targeting the Muslims. They should be labeling all Muslims as terrorists. And in that bargain, while the focus of the world was on Afghanistan and Pakistan, they got a chance to label Pakistan and Pakistanis around the world being terrorists. And the atmosphere was such that Islamophobia was predominant in most of the Western countries and especially in the United States as well. And they got an opportunity to get closer to United States, became strategic partner with the United States, and not only started to influence but started to make policies in the State House, in the State Department, and in the Pentagon, and in the other think tanks which are there. And the diaspora is huge now in United States. So that was an opportunity for them to convince most of the Western world and most of the decision makers. But unfortunately, that thing has started to unfold recently in this year, especially after the Trump administration and after the conflict which was took place between India and Pakistan, that this hedging strategy of India hasn't worked very well. Of trying to please United States and trying to please Russia and trying to get the maximum benefits from Russia and Iran, and similarly trying to show United States that they are their partners in balancing China. So all this sort of strategy of pleasing and appeasing all the superpowers hasn't worked, which is known as the hedging strategy. And finally, it has come to fail now, where everyone is starting to realize that the Indians are not to be trusted as far as their policies are concerned, as far as their actions are concerned. They don't walk their talk, and they have place their proxies in capitals of the world, even in the Western and the most modern capitals of the world just to attack their enemies, including Khalistan people, including Kashmiris, including Pakistan high ups, whichever they get, and they have been targeting them all across the world, and that has been reflected by the Five Eyes, which are there as partners with the United States as well. So this particular, exposure of the Indians throughout the world has given a sort of clarity to most of the powers that the Indians are not very trusted friends, and they play double game in geopolitics, geoeconomics, and they cannot be relied as much as they were getting closer as the strategic partners. So I personally think that this is the time for Pakistan to actually do aggressive sort of diplomacy, and should be
I
able to
think that the
convince.
Pakistani government, the Prime Minister, including the army chief, they have been they remain successful in engaging the world, Chinese, Russians, Americans, um, uh, the countries in the Western world. They remain successful in the last few months engaging with all the international community.
Yeah, absolutely. That's true. And we should not be apologetic of anything. I mean, if tomorrow such thing happens of any sort of incidents, like a terrorist attack somewhere in any part of the India, then we should be coming up more aggressively about this thing. That if India does anything, we will respond decisively, and our action would be befitting and assured. But we may also, if we are certain that they are going to do such adventure, we may be proactive in our actions as well. We should not wait. I mean, why should we wait? If India has been doing this sort of aggression repeatedly, then showing it to the world that whatever happens in India is done by Pakistan without giving any evidence, as it didn't give any evidence this time as well, and in Pulwama also. So why should we, I mean, ever be waiting for any sort of actions or any act of aggression by India? If anything happens in our territory, and incidents like Jafar Express or any of the things which we see every day, I mean, we are suffering every day on our western border, from Balochistan to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa to Gilgit-Baltistan, all being done by the proxies of India, who are not only funding them, but also supplying them the arms and ammunition, and also recruiting people over there. So we should be the ones who should do it and give them a warning once and for all, that this is enough. We have bled a lot. You cannot keep bleeding us through thousand cuts. There has to be a stop to this aggression and this irregular way of abetting terrorism from our western borders, and we should be the one who should be proactive in giving some sort of serious reply to the India, rather than waiting for them to do the first act and give some sort of surprise to us.
Thank you very much, Air Marshal Amir Masood, for your precious time, and you spoke very well and give a insight to our viewers on this very important issue. The way the Indians have been issuing these statements, and what I believe is that since it is the fifth generation warfare we talk about, and the social media, the media, the Indians government, what I have seen is they are putting billions of dollars on media now, to uh, counter whatever disgrace they have faced in May this year. And these statements, what I believe is also part of the same, fifth generation warfare, to satisfy their own public, addressing the political issues inside their country, and also sending a kind of a message to the international community as well. Thank you very much, Air Marshal, for your precious
Thank you.
time. And that's all for tonight, viewers. Thank you very much for watching.